Welcome back to my channel. It began as a story that no one could quite believe. A young woman, handcuffed outside a federal building, accused of impersonating a Navy SEAL. The authorities were confident. Her demeanor, her uniform, even her ID all seemed suspicious. But when she rolled up her sleeve at the Admiral's command, the room fell silent. Etched on her arm was the Cerberus Trident, a tattoo reserved only for members of the most secretive SEAL team ever assembled. The Admiral recognized it instantly. That tattoo was authentic. What followed wasn't just a revelation about one woman's identity. It was the unveiling of a classified legacy hidden beneath layers of secrecy, loyalty, and sacrifice. At its core, the story of the woman with the Cerberus tattoo is about resilience, secrecy, and the unseen machinery of heroism that powers those who serve in silence. It's not a tale of pretense or stolen valor, but of the cost of bearing an identity the world is never meant to acknowledge. Every element of this story functions like a precision-built machine, the way truth and deception, duty and doubt, collide to produce something raw and unforgettable. The woman, known only as Reese in declassified fragments, wasn't the type you'd expect to draw attention. Reserved, methodical, almost robotic in her movements, she carried herself with a discipline that hinted at military precision. Yet what truly made her remarkable was how ordinary she seemed. No medals, no grand speeches, just a quiet aura of command that made even the arresting officers hesitate. That paradox mirrors the operational design of the SEAL units she allegedly came from. Minimal exposure, maximum impact. The performance aspect of this narrative, if we can call it that, is built around authenticity. Every reaction, every subtle cue, demonstrates a mastery of discipline that only comes from years of high-stakes operations. When interrogated, she never over-explained. When accused, she didn't resist. It was as if she had already rehearsed every move, not as an act, but as instinct. This level of control isn't learned in weeks of pretending to be someone else. It's forged through missions where hesitation costs lives. The psychological tension of this situation, that duality of strength and silence, becomes the emotional horsepower that drives this story forward. The design elements of her persona, the insignia, the faded fatigue jacket, the folded ID, weren't props. They were the real deal, bearing micro-level authenticity markers that even trained investigators missed at first glance. The thread patterns, the emblem embroidery, the wear on the dog tags, all matched the issue standards of discontinued SEAL gear from classified operations overseas. These small but telling details are like the aerodynamic lines on a supercar. They might look aesthetic, but they serve a critical function. They cut through doubt, streamline believability, and command respect through precision. Then came the tattoo, the Cerberus Trident. Unlike the standard SEAL insignia, this design incorporated 3 overlapping blades and a serpent's coil, symbolizing the tri-domain warfare capabilities of the unit: land, air, and sea. The ink used was a proprietary military-grade pigment embedded with micro-identity tracers, tiny particles used to verify authenticity without documentation. Only the highest-ranking SEALs and their immediate kin knew of this. So, when the Admiral recognized it, the investigation pivoted instantly. What had been treated as a case of impersonation turned into a crisis of classification. The performance metrics here don't belong to a machine, but to a human being engineered for endurance. Her pulse barely changed under interrogation. Her tone never faltered. Those who witnessed her said it felt less like watching a suspect and more like observing a professional operating under a higher directive. She wasn't defensive. She was deliberate. That's the kind of composure you find in individuals trained to adapt in unpredictable conditions. It's as if she embodied a living algorithm, calculated, reactive, and unbreakably focused. What makes this story so compelling is that it exposes how fragile perception can be when faced with something that operates outside normal parameters. For years, the public's idea of a Navy SEAL has been shaped by cinematic depictions, broad shoulders, stern faces, and loud heroics. But in reality, some of the most elite operators are ghosts. Their missions never make headlines. Their records vanish in redacted reports. And when one of them accidentally steps back into the civilian world with an identity too classified to confirm, the system itself struggles to process the truth. That's the contradiction this event exposed. From a technical standpoint, the verification process of Special Forces identity relies on several systems: biometric encryption, encrypted service numbers, and mission-specific authorizations. But the Cerberus unit operated differently. Their records were scrubbed before missions began. Their existence depended on plausible deniability, meaning even the Pentagon had limited traceability. When the Admiral saw the tattoo, he knew immediately what that meant. She wasn't impersonating anyone. She was one of theirs, and her mere presence was a breach of protocol that could unravel an entire covert program. The emotional architecture of this situation is as layered as the systems she came from. Imagine dedicating your life to service, completing missions that never earn recognition, then being mistaken for a fraud because your truth doesn't fit public records. That's psychological compression at its highest setting. It's not just about proving who you are, it's about carrying an identity the world can't legally acknowledge. The woman's calmness wasn't arrogance. It was acceptance of a reality built around secrecy. If this story were a machine, its powertrain would be its authenticity. Every part, her silence, her discipline, her scars, fed into a greater performance system built on truth under suppression. Her unique selling point wasn't heroism, it was invisibility. She represented a form of service designed to be forgotten, a performance where success is measured not by fame, but by the world's ignorance of your existence. And yet, even when the system failed her, that authenticity refused to be erased. When word spread within the Navy hierarchy, a quiet internal review began. Files once locked under Project Cerberus were opened, and those who knew the truth understood that exposure was inevitable. What was uncovered suggested that Reese wasn't just part of the unit. She might have been one of its original architects. Her operational expertise matched records of field commanders who led recovery operations during blacklisted missions in regions that never appeared on maps. The very fact that she survived implied she'd outlasted a dozen operations that officially never happened. That's what gives this story its gravity. It's not just about the tattoo, it's about what it represents. A seal of truth in a world built on layers of secrecy. The authenticity of that mark transformed a courtroom spectacle into a national reckoning about how invisible heroism is treated when it steps into the light. She didn't ask for recognition. She didn't plead or explain. The tattoo spoke for her, a permanent emblem of loyalty to a cause no one was supposed to know existed. In the end, whether she was reinstated, released, or simply disappeared back into the shadows is unknown. What remains undeniable is that the world glimpsed a fragment of something extraordinary, a woman whose every fiber was built for endurance, precision, and unshakable truth. Just like the machines we admire for their flawless engineering, she operated beyond human error, guided by purpose and validated not by words, but by a symbol carved into her skin, forever authentic.